Imagine standing in a crowded nightclub where the lights are low, the air smells of cigarette smoke, glasses clink on small round tables, and a young man walks nervously toward a microphone. Nobody in the room knows that the man about to sing will one day become one of the most beloved entertainers in American history. In fact, most of the people in the room barely know his name. Tonight he isn't a legend, he isn't a superstar, he isn't even sure if he belongs on that stage. But the story you're about to hear is the untold journey of how Dean Martin got his first real break in show business and how one small moment changed everything. Before the fame, before the tuxedos, before the standing ovations in Las Vegas, Dean Martin was just a kid named Dino Crocetti growing up in a tough immigrant neighborhood. Life wasn't glamorous. There were no bright stage lights, no orchestras waiting to play behind him. Just ordinary streets, ordinary struggles, and a young man trying to figure out what he was meant to do with his life. Let me ask you something for a second. Have you ever felt like you were meant for something bigger, but didn't know how to reach it? Maybe you had a dream but didn't know where to start. That feeling, uncertainty mixed with hope, was exactly where Dean Martin once stood. Dino Crocetti was born in Steubenville, Ohio, to Italian immigrant parents. At home, Italian was spoken more than English. Life revolved around family, food, and survival. Music wasn't a career path anyone expected him to follow. In fact, his early life looked nothing like the story of someone who would become a global star. School wasn't easy for him. He struggled with English because Italian was the language he heard most growing up. Imagine sitting in a classroom where everyone else seems to understand things faster than you. That feeling alone might have made many people give up on big dreams. So instead of chasing music, young Dino tried a little bit of everything. He worked odd jobs. He delivered liquor during Prohibition. He even spent some time as an amateur boxer under the nickname Kid Crochet. Yes, believe it or not, the smooth crooner who would later charm millions once stepped into boxing rings and threw punches for a living. Now pause for a moment and imagine that. The future singer of romantic songs like That's Amore and Everybody Loves Somebody once fighting in smoky gyms. Life can be strange like that, can't it? But boxing wasn't the answer. It paid little and hurt a lot. After enough bruises and broken nights, Dino realized he needed another path. That's when music slowly began creeping into his life. Not through a grand opportunity, not through a record deal, but through small, quiet moments. He started singing in local clubs, tiny places where people talked loudly over the music and nobody really listened. Sometimes he performed just for tips. Sometimes he barely got paid at all. Picture those early nights. No fancy spotlight, no cheering crowds. Just a young man standing in front of strangers, hoping someone might notice his voice. And here's something interesting that many people don't realize about Dean Martin in those early days. He wasn't confident yet. Not the relaxed, effortless performer we all remember. Back then, he was still learning how to connect with an audience. Have you ever tried something new in front of people and felt nervous? That was him too. But he kept showing up, night after night, song after song. Slowly, people began to notice something special about his voice. It wasn't loud or dramatic like many singers of that era. It was smooth, warm, effortless. Listening to him felt like hearing a friend tell a story. One club owner once described it like this. When Dean Martin sang, it felt like the entire room relaxed. But even with that natural talent, success didn't arrive overnight. In fact, years passed with little progress. Small gigs, small paychecks, small audiences. And here's the part of the story that really makes you think. Many people would have quit right there. Think about it. How long would you chase a dream if the results were slow? Months? A year? Maybe two? Dean Martin kept going much longer than that. Then one night, something unexpected happened. He was performing at a small nightclub when a fellow entertainer happened to walk in. A comedian. Loud, energetic, completely different from the calm singer on stage. That comedian was Jerry Lewis. At the time, Jerry Lewis was also trying to build his career. He was known for wild comedy routines and unpredictable energy. When he saw Dean Martin perform, he noticed something interesting right away. Dean had the voice, but he didn't yet have the showmanship. Jerry later joked that Dean sang beautifully, but looked like he was half asleep while doing it. Now imagine this moment from Jerry's perspective. He sees a talented singer, but also sees the potential for something bigger. After the show, Jerry approached him. The conversation that followed would eventually change entertainment history. Jerry suggested something unusual. What if we performed together? Now pause and think about that idea. A smooth, relaxed singer paired with a wild, unpredictable comedian. At first glance, it sounded crazy, but sometimes the craziest ideas become the most brilliant. Dean Martin wasn't immediately convinced. He had spent years trying to build a solo career. Joining forces with a comedian seemed risky, but they decided to try it anyway. Their first performances together were chaotic. Really chaotic. Jerry would interrupt Dean's songs. Dean would pretend to get annoyed. Jerry would act ridiculous on stage. The audience didn't know whether they were watching a concert or a comedy show. But here's the surprising part. People loved it. The contrast between Dean's cool charm and Jerry's wild humor created something completely new. It wasn't just singing, it wasn't just comedy, it was entertainment in its purest form. Night after night, their act grew more popular. Soon crowds were filling the clubs just to see what unpredictable thing would happen next. And just like that, Dean Martin's first real big break had arrived. Together, Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis became one of the hottest acts in show business. They moved from nightclubs to radio, from radio to movies, from movies to national fame. Audiences couldn't get enough of them. One played the straight man, the other played the chaos. And somehow it worked perfectly. But here's what makes this story even more fascinating. Dean Martin didn't just ride Jerry Lewis's success, he grew into his own legendary presence. Over time, audiences began to realize that Dean wasn't just the calm partner in a comedy duo. He was a performer with incredible charm, timing, and musical talent. Eventually, he would go on to become one of the biggest stars in entertainment, a successful recording artist, a movie actor, a television host, and a Las Vegas icon, all from that one unexpected partnership. Think about how easily things could have gone differently. If Dean Martin had refused that partnership, if he had walked away from the idea, if he had decided to quit during those struggling early years, the world might never have heard the voice behind That's Amore. That's the power of one opportunity, one decision, one moment where someone says yes instead of no. So let me ask you something again. What opportunity might be standing in front of you right now that you haven't recognized yet? Sometimes the biggest turning points in life don't look dramatic at first. They look small, uncertain, risky. Just like that first partnership between Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis. But those small moments can change everything. Years later, Dean Martin would become the definition of effortless cool. The tuxedo, the relaxed smile, the unforgettable voice. People watching him on stage probably assumed he had always been that confident. But now you know the truth. Behind every legend is a long road filled with doubt, experiments, and unexpected partnerships. And that's what makes his story so powerful. It reminds us that success doesn't start with fame. It starts with persistence, with trying again, with saying yes when life offers a strange new opportunity. And sometimes it starts in a small, smoky nightclub where nobody expects history to begin. If you enjoyed this untold story about Dean Martin and the surprising moment that gave him his first big break, then you're in the perfect place because this channel is all about the fascinating stories behind legendary entertainers. Before you go, make sure you subscribe so you never miss the next story about the icons who shaped music and entertainment history. And now I want to hear from you. If you were in Dean Martin's position back then, struggling in small clubs and suddenly offered a strange partnership with a comedian like Jerry Lewis, would you have taken the risk or stayed on your original path?